There's one more quick point I want to tell you about strings. All the objects, including strings, integers, and floats that we have seen so far are what we call immutable, which means you cannot modify their value. So for example, if I have s equals cat, the 0th letter is a C. If I try to modify that C to a B, I want to make bat, well, that will give me an error. I will get this error message saying the string object does not support item assignment, meaning you cannot set S0 to something else. So for immutable objects like strings, we cannot modify the actual string object. We can, of course, change the variable s from cat to bat. This will not produce an error. We can assign s to a different string object, but the string object itself cannot be modified. Let me convince you of this. Here, if I have set s to this string object, then this string object, like every Python object, has a unique identifier. I can find out that identifier by calling the built-in ID function. So when I say what is the ID of s, it finds the object that s is currently attached to, this string object, and it happens to have this long integer as its ID. Every object in Python has an integer ID, which you can query by looking this up. Now, when I say s is now equal to bat, I am not modifying this object. I am not modifying the object whose ID is this large number. If I now ask what is the ID of s, I will get a different number. All that has happened is that the variable s, which is like a baggage tag, has moved from this object, the object with this ID, to a different object which has a different ID. So I have not changed the 0th letter of the string cat to from C to B. I have simply moved the label to an entirely new object. Exactly the same thing happens when you deal with integers or floats, as this example shows. I have an integer I initialized to 37. I ask what is the ID of that integer object. I get some super long number. It ends with 904. Now I increase the value of I by 1, I plus equal to 1. I say what is the ID of I now? It's a different object. I did not modify this 37, I simply moved the label I from 37 to a fresh integer object whose value was 38. And the ID of that object is different to the ID of my previous object. This proves that I didn't modify the original object. I can't, it's immutable, but I did assign I to a different object. Similarly here, if I set f to I divided by 2, if I is 38, then this is the float value 19.0. And I say what is the ID of f? I get some number. Now when I multiply f by 2, star equal to is like multiplying by 2, I'll get a different float object 38.0, and that is different in ID. That float object 38.0 is also different to the integer object 38. They're of different types. So every object has an ID, a type, and a value. And what I've showed you here is that strings, integers, and floats, their value cannot be changed. All these are objects of immutable types, ints, floats, and strings. Later, we will see types that are mutable.